His much-loved spin-off of Father Brown.
So he was...
electrocuted, yes. How shocking. Oh.
Season 2 of Sister Boniface Mysteries is now streaming exclusively on BritBox.
Most intriguing.
Undeniably British, undeniably brilliant.
Tonight on ABC, he's a superhero of the Avengers who risked his own life to try to save his nephew.
Someone's been run over by a snowcat. Hurry. He's been crossed. There's a lot of blood over here. Oh.
This was a sound of someone that was dying.
Jeremy Renner, his first interview anywhere since his near-death snowplow accident.
Do you remember the pain?
Oh, all of it. Yeah, I was awake through every moment.
The Diane Sawyer interview. Watch tonight at 10/9 Central on ABC.
We've got a traffic update here for you. South Church Street, right in front of the Kroger, South Church Street, when there's an accident, it backs up everywhere, and that is going on right there in front of the Kroger. Had a caller who mentioned that the accident, they've moved to the median. The police have the cars in the median, but traffic both going towards Shelbyville and inbound to Murfreesboro really at a standstill. South Church Street, right in front of the Kroger. And that's a look at your latest traffic.
The Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and online at WGNSradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Good morning. This is Bill Krause on the Roundtable. A beautiful Thursday morning. Well, it's a rainy Thursday morning, but rain is beautiful if you look upon it that way. We are so pleased to have with us as our guest this morning, Tammy Sharp. And Tammy is the current president of the Rutherford County Board of Education School Board. And Tammy has a wonderful background and record, and certainly a great passionate lady about education. We always like to start our visits with a little background. Tell us where you were born and your journey of life until you got to Rutherford County.
Well, I was born and raised in Memphis. I'm a graduate of Memphis City Schools. And in 1996, I had a job opportunity to work for one of the best banks ever. That was First American National Bank. And so a friend and I packed up bags. We were single and no kids, and we just packed up everything we had and moved to Nashville to work for First American. Excellent. And you initially were thinking about nursing? I was at Memphis State. That kind of tells my age. It's now... stop at this point. We have to wish Tammy a happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Tammy. Happy birthday to you. Thank you so much. It's my last year of my fabulous 50s, so I'll have to come up for another word for 60s. Well, absolutely. You're still a youngster and life ahead of you to do continued great things for community, great things for education, and great things for music. I'm just thankful God wakes me up every morning. Now, talk about you were first elected to the board when? In 2018. 2018, I had a phenomenal opponent, Dow Smith, who is a local contractor here, Dow Smith. He is so benevolent to our school system. I have to send a shout out to him at Smyrna Elementary. He is helping, he's helped fund an outdoor, basically auditorium and classroom. You can probably drive by there and see it. They've laid the concrete and everything now. They had the groundbreaking last year, but he was a good opponent and a phenomenal benefactor to our school system. So I have to thank him for that. What motivated you to get into the educational politics? Well, I never really planned to run for office. The seat was open. Aaron Holiday was not going to run again, and there was a gentleman who was going to run, and you know, if you know politics and campaigns, you kind of start a year ahead of time. Correct. And they were in the process of, getting him ready and prepping him, and was going to file paperwork when he decided he wasn't going to run. And so, you just can't find anybody at the last minute to run for office in any given area. So you had to live in Laverne. And so I was already kind of helping with the campaign. So I said, well, I've got to run because we can't leave the seat empty. So that's how I ended up running. And in your bio, it talks about
Kentucky Colonel?
Yes. I live right by the Laverne Library, and it's at the intersection, basically, of Waldron Road and Murfreesboro Road. So not having a lot of funds, because I didn't have the ramp up, like a usual candidate, I stood out on the corner with my sign in the traffic patterns in the morning, starting about 5 a.m. There's a lot of cars that come through that intersection. So it's free.
And you were just reelected this last time?
I was just reelected, unopposed in the Republican primary. I didn't want them to do the partisan seats. But I did run on the Republican ticket, and in the primary I was unopposed, as well as the general election.
Which speaks something great about your 4 years of service.
I hope so, because I have worked mighty hard. Just yesterday, I was at Laverne Middle, and they were raising funds for playground equipment, and I had made at the Title I meetings, spring Title I meetings we have every year, I made a comment. I said, if you need help with fundraising, let me know. I'll come out, I'll kiss a pig, or I'll color my hair, or something like that. Well, she said, well, will you take a pie to the face? And I said, oh, absolutely. Well, yesterday I got 29 pies.
In your face?
To the face,
Well,
yes.
Did they
From the students.
Did they taste good?
It was thank God it was just whipped cream. But they raised a lot of money, and I kept my word because I told them that I would. And the kids were they'll never forget it.
Speaking of attendance in school, talk about your visit last night.
Oh, my visit last night was to Smyrna High School. The city of Smyrna had a sort of a reception for Janae Edmondson. For those of you listening that don't know, was a young lady from Smyrna High School. She's a senior, who was in St. Louis for a volleyball tournament. And just a completely freak accident. A car hit her and amputated both of her legs. She had played basketball, she had played volleyball, and from what I understand, except for her father being there, things may have turned out differently. But she's back. She started school today, and we had a reception for her last night. Completely poised, the family is phenomenal, and they're going to need a lot of help, and the community has just absolutely wrapped their arms around them. There was probably 500 or 600 people last night there, and a storm rolled through on the north end of the county before 6 o'clock, and it was going to start at 6 o'clock. But Brian Hercules and the city of Smyrna had the reception, and it was so nice. And I have to tell you, I had students or parents come up to me and say, we're so thankful for the school board and the things that we've been doing recently, and they just love Dr. Sullivan. So it was a great night.
Well, Jimmy Sullivan was our guest a few weeks ago, and I can see why they love him, and I can see why they love the school board. Talk about some of the achievements that you've seen in the past 4 years, some of the things you're especially proud of with the Rutherford County Schools.
Oh, there's so many. I know one that's probably affects everyone in the system is we have done a salary study. So across the board, the growing pains and everything that the system has had, because literally from May to August every year, we grow a school.
Wow.
We have been the fastest growing school in the state of Tennessee for the last 10 years. So there's no wonder the growth that we're seeing. But we did a salary study, and that's going to be published soon. So it's going to give everyone a little bit of a raise and get everybody kind of a path, because the path for teachers stopped at like 20 years. So it's going to go to the 25 years. So if they had more time served than 20 years, that they really didn't get any raises or anything like that. So Dr. Sullivan took that on. He's been talking about it, not this Tuesday night, but our previous 2 school board meetings 2 weeks ago. He spoke about it at both of our school board meetings. So, if you don't watch one, you can see it on the other one. But that is absolutely one of the accomplishments that our central office has been absolutely outstanding in that. I mean, there's so many things that we're doing because of the growth, but that's one that's going to affect our teachers. It's going to go all the way to our custodians and to our EAs and to nutrition. So it's going to affect everyone. And we are hoping that that will kind of stop some of the bleeding of the attrition going to other counties and things like that. for our teachers.
And related to that, the ability to attract new teachers.
Yes. We're up on the north end, there's been articles on the north end about difficult staffing at Laverne High School because we are so close to Davidson County. They're paying about $10,000 more a year for their teachers, and we just can't compete with that. Our budget's probably a third of what theirs is, and we just have to have, look, our teachers are absolutely worth it. I couldn't do it. I don't know how they do it day in and day out. My hat's off to them, because I talk to a lot of them, and I have a lot of them that are friends, and they're absolutely worth it. And so the board is just ecstatic to see this happen, and help our teachers and our staff.
One of the interesting questions when Laverne's Mayor Jason Cole was visiting us a few weeks back, he talked about a development planned west of Laverne with 11,000 homes.
11,000. There's so many. He called me the other day and said, we just approved at Beaumont, we just approved a 2 or 3 story apartment complex on Waldron Road that's going to have 900 units.
Wow.
900 more units. So that area is just, it's blown up. We hired a company to do an enrollment analysis, and their analysis was that between now and 2026, we're going to receive 7,000 more students.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to put that into perspective, your elementary is about 800. A nice size elementary is about 800 students. So, and then somewhere there in the middle for a middle school, and then your high schools about 1,500. Our large high schools now are close to 2,500. Wow. And just logistically, staff-wise, security-wise, behavioral wise, I think,
Yes.
The more students that you have, the more behavior issues that you have to contend with. The board is really looking at kind of downsizing our, when we build again, kind of downsizing somewhat, because it is really hard on the staff. Our high schools that we build in the future, but the growth is just phenomenal. Not really necessarily in a good way. And Dr. Sullivan said that the numbers that the Tennessee Department of Education had given him for the new TISA funding, the projections are lining up as well. So the numbers that the agency gave us on the analysis study are matching up with what our state is saying is going to happen and is going to come here. And the problem is we already have kids in closets. If there's storage room for books or storage room for sports equipment or anything like that, that's all been pulled out, especially on the north end all the way down to Blackman. All that stuff's been pulled out, and they've either put it in a public storage or they've put a barn, one of the portable barns, on the property, and we've made classrooms out of those rooms, and we're just literally busing at the seams everywhere.
Actually, it was interesting that Dr. Sullivan had mentioned about busing. He mentioned the busing, including by mandate, picking up several students out of Clarksville and bringing them down to Rutherford County because of an adoption or a foster child placement situation.
Right. If we have homeless students in our Atlas program, if they're displaced, we're required by law to allow them to come to school. So there have been students that we've sent Ubers to Clarksville so that they can stay in the school. And if you think at it from the child's perspective, it is, that they're already homeless, so they already have one trauma in their life going on. But that is part of the cost of education that people do not realize.
Exactly.
The wraparound services that we offer, if your child isn't involved in that, most people don't have any concept of
one
what we
area
do.
that I'm not familiar with, and you can educate me on this, coming from California, this was a strong requirement. Does the developer of the 11,000 homes, are they required to dedicate land for schools?
No.
See, there's state legislation that would be extremely good. Like in many cases, they are required to dedicate land for parks, as well as, of course, do the infrastructure, sewers and roads, etc. But it may be, if they're providing that type of impact, at least because of acquisition of land for the amount of schools you've made reference to, is going to be a cost item just from its own standpoint.
And I think that's a great idea. It would really have to depend, because, we have dirty dirt here and we have good dirt here.
Yes.
So even if they bought a big parcel of land, they may would have to buy more to accommodate that. So, but we are going to vote on a resolution tonight in support of our county commissioners and the facilities use tax, raising the impact fee basically. I think it's $1,500 to $5,000, which counties around us have had that for years. It has not slowed their growth, and they have nicer schools, and some of them are facing similar growth patterns like we are.
And related to that is kind of interesting when you talk about the rise of cost of housing. Rise of cost of housing is not only restricted to cost of lumber and plumbing and electrical and all other fixtures to build the house, but the requirements to provide funding for public service, which is not automatically to be assumed to be not part of the purchase of a house. So the price of a house is going to cost more because of a facility tax, for example, and that has to be done.
It is, but I mean, and the builder will pass that. Obviously, will pass that along to the consumer. But what most people don't understand is the state does fund education. So they fund our teachers and everything for education, but they're not funding the brick and mortar. So your brick and mortar is coming from local taxpayers.
Correct. Let's talk about a love of your professional and personal life, music and arts, and the need to maintain those levels within the school system.
Oh, I absolutely. When I was voted as chair, one of my aims was to raise the level of support in Rutherford County for our arts. We have fantastic. Look, I was cheerleader. I cheered for football, basketball. I was not a player, but
did you play an instrument?
I did not play an instrument.
Wow.
I did not. The radio. But my art form was cakes. So like they're doing now, I was doing way back in the day, because I've been decorating cakes since I was about 10 years old. The lady next door who I grew up with, her children, she was a cake decorator. So she taught all the girls in the neighborhood how to decorate cakes. So that's kind of my art form, but you can't really make a living with that. You couldn't then, you can now. It's very expensive, but so my goal was to raise the awareness, the infrastructure, the support for arts, because it's sort of like when we were in banking. I feel like we were leaving something on the table. We've got people that are, we've got a group of people that are in athletics, but we also have a group of people that are very talented. I mean, the central office every year, they have a contest throughout the school, and they bring in the art. Those that win, they bring in the art to put on the walls or put on pedestals in the central office. We don't have artwork. We don't buy any artwork. So the kids furnish the artwork for our building. And I'm telling you, after COVID, the quality and I don't understand how every year it's better. Every year it's better, because even this year they just brought in just recently the new artwork for this year, and we have some incredibly talented people, and we've got to give them a forum or some infrastructure where they get the support for that.
Of course, that leads on to in the square and now in the fountains. Do you want to talk about
Jazz Fest?
Jazz Fest, correct.
So in November of last year, the band directors were told that they were not going to have Jazz Fest. So the holidays went by, and in January, myself and Claire Maxwell and Katie Darby, the school board members, it really wasn't a school project. We just said we have to do something for our students. So we had we kind of put a shout out and through Scott Broden at the DNJ, and he had called me and he said, "Hey, Scott Graby, the owner of the fountain, said he would let you use the facilities." So I'm telling you, that's an underwriting of about $15,000 to $20,000 just to have the facilities, and we would have never. I don't think we would have ever gotten it off the ground had we not had a location or a venue. So we're struggling a little bit right now because of the economy. We've got a lot of volunteers, but if there's anybody that wants to do some gifts in kind, we're looking for porta potties. We're looking for security, because when you look into we're going to have security, because there'll probably be 600 to 1,000 people there, because we've got 10 or 11 bands that are going to play, and then we have a professional band that's going to play sometime around 2:00. So we'll need someone to direct traffic and everything, and help the parking lot, and just security in general. And it's about $50 an hour to rent someone from the city or someone from the county, and that's going to be another large expense. So, and looking at times maybe like a 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock or something like that. But we need, those are two outstanding things that we're still trying to pull funding in.
Is there a tentative date?
Yes, it's the 6th of May. So it's the first weekend.
Close.
Yes, it's going to be close. We're just about 30 days out. So it's the weekend before all the graduations start. Mm-hmm. So I'm rolling out of Jazz Fest right into the 8 schools that we're going to have.
If people want to make a contribution, what's the contact information? Or they could send a check. Let's call it right bold what it is.
Look, I'll come and pick up a check. Just, I'll give you my phone number.
Not even checks in the mail.
Yeah, well, you can mail it to Cafe Artistra. They're handling our funds, so none of us politicians.
One more time.
Cafe Artistra. It's 1334 Hazelwood. It's in Smyrna. They're doing our website, and they're doing the insurance. They're handling a lot of other things for us for this event. But if you want to call me, I'll come and pick up a check. I'll come and pick up a gift in kind. 615-839-4687. My phone number's out there anyway.
One more time.
615-839-4687. I will come and personally pick up a check. I know Claire Maxwell has been beating the bushes. Bless her heart. That girl is a fundraiser extraordinaire.
This is Bill Krause on the Roundtable on WGNS, having a delightful visit with Tammy Sharp. Tammy Sharp.
I'll answer to anything.
Because she's very sharp.
Juanette.
So Tammy Sharp, who's the chairperson of the Rutherford County School Board, and we'll be right back.
It was big news when Oakland and Riverdale schools opened their doors. Now, 50 years later, the first graduating classes are celebrating with a reunion the first weekend of June. If you are a friend or family of a 73 graduate, please be sure they are aware of this momentous event by informing them of our website to register.
Visit OaklandRiverdaleClass1973.com. Again, that's OaklandRiverdaleClass1973.com.
Absolute deadline is May 15th.
Hey guys, this is Scott. There's a lot of people talking about testosterone. You hear it everywhere, but do your homework and make sure when you go to a provider, go to one you can trust. Personally, I recommend Low T Center. It's where I get my levels checked. Low T Center exclusively specializes in men's wellness, and they check all your levels, not just your testosterone. And they determine the cause of any symptoms you're having and whether you're a candidate for low T or something else like low thyroid or sleep apnea. Typically, their annual health assessment is completely covered by health insurance, and they check everything, including PSA, which is your prostate levels. And they also check thyroid, liver, and kidney function, cholesterol, glucose levels, and more. Low T Center also has affordable and convenient at-home treatment options. Prioritize your health in the new year. Schedule your annual health assessment at Low T Center today at lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
It's Good Neighbor Events. Brought to you by AmeriCare Pest Control, Cardinal Realty Solutions, and the law offices of John Day.
This is a paid legal ad.
You've probably heard it a million times. If you're injured, call a lawyer. And you probably haven't, because you don't know how much it will cost, how long it will take, or even if you have a case. At the law offices of John Day, we provide a free initial consultation because we understand that folks don't want to pay a lawyer only to find out they don't have a case. If you think we can help, we do so on a contingency basis, which means we only get paid if you do. Seriously injured? Call me, John Day.
Let's check those WGNS Good Neighbor events. And if you are a member of the first graduating class of Oakland or Riverdale high schools, your joint reunion will be June 2nd and 3rd, but you need to RSVP by May the 15th. And you can do that online at OaklandRiverdaleClass1973.com. Hey, don't forget, Shred Day is this Saturday starting at 9 o'clock in the morning over at Wilson Bank and Trust, the one at 3110 Memorial Boulevard. They start shredding at 9 o'clock Saturday morning. It ends when the truck's full. Once again, Shred Day this Saturday starts at 9 o'clock at Wilson Bank and Trust on Memorial Boulevard. Are you a retired Rutherford County teacher? Listen closely. the Retired Teachers Association, has their monthly meeting on Tuesday, April the 11th, 1:30 in the afternoon at the North Boulevard Church of Christ. And the Center for the Arts Backstage Bash is coming up Saturday evening, April 22nd. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Good neighbor weather. We'll see periods of showers and thunderstorms here for this afternoon with cloudy skies and temperatures holding steady. Then for tonight, good chance for showers and storms, a low 45. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Vujicic, Scan News Radio, WGNS. Currently, it's 53.
WGNS powered by Middle Tennessee Electric. Looking to go solar? MTE's Pro Solar program is committed to educating members on the process and helping them achieve their renewable energy goals. Learn more about Pro Solar and your free consultation at mte.com/prosolar.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
This is Bill Krause again. Welcome back to the second segment of the Roundtable, and we are having a wonderful visit with Tammy Sharp, who is the chair of the Rutherford County School Board, school trustees, school government, however we want to call it. A little bit of history, a little bit of demographics. What's the total enrollment right now of Rutherford County?
Right now we have 51,000 students.
And you serve all of the county except for the city of Murfreesboro. Is that correct?
We do. There are elementary schools that are we have elementary schools that are in Murfreesboro. So.
And as you were talking in the early part of our visit, you're growing so rapidly in terms of numbers.
Yes, phenomenal numbers. Between now and 2026, we're going to have 7,000 more students.
Wow.
7,000.
And yes. The amount of teachers and staff and support service people?
Just the general high school would be about 100 teachers. So, you'd have probably a principal and 2 assistant principals and, then the support staff that goes with that. So
let's talk about education post-pandemic. You were on the board the entire time of the pandemic, beginning in 2020. What are your professional and, I should say, administrative observations, what happened in Rutherford County during that period of time and what's happening post-pandemic?
Well, I'll tell you, the board was just in Florida, Tampa, for COSBA. It's the new and improved NSBA, National School Board Association. And there were schools there, absolutely. One was from one of the principals from Columbine, who did a security session, was talking about his students had been out of school for 3 years. And I can't imagine, our students being out of the learning loss, number one, was bad enough for our students, and we were only closed for a couple of weeks. I just can't imagine being closed for that long and not having the kids in schools. First of all, let me just say, it was a very difficult decision, but we thought it was the right decision because we know, most of my schools up on the north end, they're Title I schools, and they may not have supervision. They sometimes, let's be honest about it, the only time that they eat may be at school. Mm-hmm. And the only time that they see a medical professional might be our nurse. And so we felt like it would be better for them to be in school learning and not at home.
And even seeing a role model called a teacher or a staff person.
Right. And so, as difficult as it was to make those calls, I do think that it was the best. Now, our legislature has gone in and there's a lot of consternation around the third grade literacy bill, which I think, the younger that you catch them, if they can't read, it goes back to reading is fundamental. And if you can read, you can do anything. Mm-hmm. And so I think the younger is better for our students to catch them versus being in middle school or high school, because there is a social stigma attached to that, if you can't read. And then by then, students are smart enough, they know how to kind of work around the system or fool us, and we think that they can read. So I think the earlier is better. The legislature has given us funding for tutors. They've given us funding for summer school, and I'm in favor of it. I think they did a great job. It was a great stab, because remember, they did this during COVID.
Correct.
So this law was during COVID, and it came into effect this last summer, and then this summer we'll have another round of summer school.
Excellent. And you also have, which many people may not realize, a relatively high number of students for English as a second language.
We have a very high, a lot. The concentration is in Laverne and Smyrna, but they're at every school. We have a large population, Hispanic population, and then Middle Eastern population. And we have problems getting ESL teachers for those two languages. Are more really at Smyrna Middle. They have something like 122 dialects.
Really?
Yes. So there's some similarities among all of them, but it's very hard for us to get tutors or teachers that can help teach that.
Well, speaking of teachers, let's suppose you were speaking to a young group of men and women, and you were talking about the challenges, opportunities, and wonderful life to become a teacher. What would you say to a person who's considering teaching, but they're not yet over the fence?
Well, I'll just say from my end of it, I know we have some phenomenal teachers in our system, and they love doing it. They love doing it despite it's not the highest paid occupation. They love doing it despite, they go home with papers to grade. They miss part of their own children's events to teach. We have teachers that coach on the side and do a lot of things with our students that they don't get paid for. So they want, it's something that you have to love, and that's how you're going to be successful.
It's a calling.
Yes, it is a calling.
And the question is, you either going to follow through. You don't look upon it as a job, an 8 to 5 or a 9 to 5 job. It's a calling, and most people think, well, you just go to school at 7:45 and you're out at 2:30. That's nice.
Yeah, and they think, oh, you got the summers off, but really, you kind of don't. But I'll just say, from COVID, I think our parents got a new perspective of our teachers. I think, there's stuff that happens on the national level that when I talk to people here, in Rutherford County, they're not paying any attention to that, but they see how our teachers work in the system. And I think our parents got a different perspective, because when they were at home and trying to show them how to do Zoom classes or try to help them with math, especially, they had I think they now have a new appreciation for the teachers.
When I had Dr. McPhee, president of MTSU, on the air about 3 months ago, the one thing he pointed out with great pride was the partnership between MTSU and the Rutherford County Schools in terms of being not only a teacher education source, but a ongoing information source for teachers.
Yes, we do. And we're trying... I don't think any one college can provide all the teachers that we need, as large as our system is. So we're happy to have the relationship with them, and we've got to have more. Dr. Anthony and her team in HR has started recruiting earlier. We used to recruit in the spring. Now we've backed it up to the fall the year before, and it's a monumental task of having enough teachers to come and teach, because part of it, some people know legislatively they've backed us kind of into a corner. You might could teach a college level class, but if you don't have elementary, an elementary endorsement, you can't teach. You can sub, but you can't teach. And the Department of Education is not friendly with their waivers. So we could ask for a waiver, but they don't give them out as much as we would hope to.
Have you had a problem filling sub positions?
Subs have been tough, and up on the in Laverne, just filling regular teacher jobs. I think we've got about 14 spots that are open right now, and they're usually math and English, and there's some ESL spots that are open too. But Dr. Hatchett, she's phenomenal. She's a hometown girl, and the parents and the students just love her. And Laverne we're progressing. It is a Title I school, but the academics are there.
Absolutely. I have the pleasure of working with 32 Laverne High School students through the dual enrollment at Motlow, and I am very, very impressed with those young men and young women. Very impressed.
We had someone during COVID have a scholarship to, I can't quote it now, but to one of the Ivy League schools from Laverne.
Has there been a good relationship or transfer from Smyrna graduates to college?
I think so. Are they working with, I forget the college that they're working with, because each school kind of has a different relationship with a different school. But, obviously Motlow's there, and I want to say Belmont, but might be their sister school, but don't quote me on that. But we do, our college readiness staff and everything, they do a phenomenal job in getting our students ready to.
How do you measure, if you can, besides test scores, how do you measure the quality, the overall quality of education? That is the mission, and that's the goal, that's the objective, the quality of education, not only in Rutherford County, but nationwide. Is there a certain level of quality that we seek?
I think besides the test scores, and I don't, look, I'm not a teacher, and I don't have the education background in college. So that's not the one thing that I usually always absolutely look at. Data is great. But I'll tell you, the workforce, we have a great workforce, and that's one of the things our school system provides. And that's why people want to come here. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. If you have a great school system, you're going to have a great workforce, and then that's going to carry out into the community.
If you had a magic wand to look at Rutherford County 5 years from now, even in spite of the huge growth that's anticipated, what would your magic wand be as the chair of the school board? What would you want the school board to be doing above and beyond the excellent work they're doing now?
Well, if money was no object, we would build about 10 schools. And because we're going to need them. We're probably behind about 10 schools right now. We have, right now, the bench that we have as far as the school board goes, it's phenomenal, the depth. We've got some business owners. For once, we have, we had some parents, like Lisa Moore and I both had students that were still in school, but they were older. But now we have 2 board members that have young students. So we've got some that kind of run the gamut now from elementary up into high school. So that also, gives us a little bit more skin in the game. And Sheila Bratton, former administrator, she was the middle school coordinator. She brings a depth to our bench. She handled all the insurance that we went from the county to the state. She handled the retirement. Phenomenal. And then Katie Darby and Coy Young and Caleb Tidwell, all are business owners or work in the industries, and so they bring a lot of information. And then we have Miss Rosales, who is Hispanic, who brings that perspective to the bench. So we have a lot of diversity on our bench.
This is Bill Krause on the Roundtable, and we're having a delightful visit with Tammy Sharp, who's the chair of the Rutherford County School Board, and is bringing us not only current and contemporary information, but a wonderful perspective. We will be right back.
Chip Walters here with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates. I was named a top 10 agent in the #1 Exit Realty office in America in 2021. The top question I get around town, how's the market? Good question. And the answer's changed a few times this year alone. I'd like to know what you've heard and share some solid data we have. Give me a call and let's have a cup of coffee and take a look at what's happening in your neighborhood. All my contact info is right on my website, choosechip.net. I'm Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates.
This is Dr. David Morris with Magnolia Medical Center. Do you suffer from peripheral neuropathy in your hands or feet, burning pain, balance problems, and decreased quality of life? Magnolia Medical Center can help.
Magnolia Medical Center in Murfreesboro. Online at magnoliamedicalcenters.com.
Here at Bud's Tire, we make buying Michelin tires simpler. I'm Allison Mitchell with Bud's Tire Pros. We offer a straightforward approach to service, including nationwide warranties with every purchase. Stop in today to see our full lineup of Michelin and BF Goodrich tires. For whatever you drive, Michelin and BF Goodrich have a tire to fit any need. Bud's Tire Pros, hassle-free, guaranteed. We're located on East Main Street, exactly 3 miles from the town square, 1 mile past Rutherford Boulevard. Visit us online at budstirepros.tn.com.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
This is Bill Krause, the third and final segment of this Thursday's Roundtable on WGNS. And we are visiting this morning with Tammy Sharp, who is the chair of the Rutherford County School Board. I'm going to take a little different direction at this point because it's something that has always interested me and certainly a major part of my teaching American government. Talk about men and women getting involved in politics, whether it's on the local and ultimately the state or national level. Tell us what drives, what rewards, what opportunities, and what great satisfaction can occur being involved in the political world.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't ever, well, civics was one of my favorite classes back in high school, but I don't think I ever thought about running for office until I moved to Nashville. And I think regardless of what side of the aisle that you're on, I think everyone should be involved. And because that's what it's about. That's everyone coming together and talking about ideas. It's a tough job. It's a, I want to say it's lonely at the top, but it is, because there are just some things that you look at and say, I'm not going to be a part of that, or I'm just going to try to stay neutral on that. And that's kind of how I've really tried to govern as far as the school board. I know that there was some consternation among some when they knew that I was going to be chair, that they were saying, oh God, they're going to be burning books and they're going to be doing all this other stuff and everything. And it's like, no, we're First Amendment advocates, but sure enough, there is some books that are in our libraries that probably our children don't need to have access to.
Well, it's something like anything else when you talk regulation or you talk standards and so forth. It's automatically going to create a division of opinion. I ask every elected official that I have on the round table, and this is a question you can think about for a moment. I've had different responses, but it basically comes up with the same conclusions. Let's say on a board meeting you have an agenda item, and it's a very controversial, very hot agenda item, and you have a particular philosophy dealing with that agenda item. You are very passionate about that item, very committed about that item, but you know that a large percentage of your constituency is on the opposite side of that agenda item. Do you vote your conscience or do you vote your constituency?
Well, I'll tell you, we had a situation recently that was in all the media, and my constituents really didn't have a weigh in, but because of my knowledge, they really didn't weigh in. But because of my knowledge of the history of the situation, I voted my conscience because I knew some of the stuff that had happened. As politicians or elected officials, we know a lot of information that the public isn't privy to. So that's one thing. I try to look at everything and not one side. I look at everything, all the information that I have, and then try to make a decision on that issue at that time.
And you're looking both the immediate results as well as long-term results, which may be conflicting.
It could be, and I mean, things change, and the way people think have, one day, look, we get criticized. We're never going to make everyone happy. We're just not. I mean, we had one letter of criticism from someone here in the county because we closed schools on Monday to go over our security procedures. And that's just one thing that I'm and the rest of the board is not going to apologize for. We're going to keep our teachers and our students safe.
Absolutely. And yet somebody can say, well, I have to stay at home because my child's at home. I can't send them off to school and go to work or go shopping or what have you. So you're inconveniencing me.
Well, and there's that aspect. I get it. I was a single parent, for a number of years with my son. And we know that there's always that aspect. But the security of everyone outweighs the inconvenience.
Exactly. And we've certainly gone through that situation the last couple of weeks here in Middle Tennessee. If you are looking at education on a national level and not necessarily getting involved with the budget or curriculum or criteria of books or what have you, are there certain expectations that you as a contributor to the political and the educational process, seek? What are some of the large overall goals of public education?
I think a lot of it is, in my opinion, this is not the board's opinion, I'd like to get back to the basics of schools, reading, writing, math, history. There's a lot of other things that are pushing in on that classroom time, and I'm sure you see that in your classroom. Sure. That that our teachers are legislated to do certain things. I don't think our test scores are going to change until we get back to the basics of school, because talking about mental health obviously is an issue, but that's not in our wheelhouse. That's my thought. I'm not speaking for the board. Our teachers are there to educate. And
Correct.
That's what we need to get back to.
And that's one of the interesting points as a teacher. And I share this with students, and we certainly have this discussion every time we have a major tragedy like we recently had. Sure. Are teachers, are administrators, is the average person mindful of those signs reflecting people's behavior that could ultimately lead into a tragic situation?
I think some do know. I've studied, that was one of the things, it's one of the things that keeps us all up at night, because we were always kind of the opinion of it's not if, it's when. And we needed to be prepared and be proactive. So there's a business out of Williamson County Defense Systems, and they have offered a lot of public free training for active shooter drills. And so I've gone to they have one at Dave Ramsey's office. They had one at the Lipscomb campus last year in August. They also had one at Lighthouse Christian for their teachers, but it was open to the public. So I went to that as well. And one of the themes that I saw running through those presentations was that the students always knew. The students always knew.
Of other students.
Of the other students, yes, they always knew, and several of the teachers knew. That's kind of one of the things that our hands are tied with, because we want people to have a free education and have an education. But if we send them to the alternative school, they get sent back to the regular school, or they get sent back to the alternative school. So it's a kind of moving back and forth. And the legislature has been really good in the last year or two. I know we've got some new legislation where we can, if we think that there's a certain situation, we can move them to the virtual school. We've not done that. I don't think we've had anything near that situation. Patty Esser is phenomenal in her assessments and everything. We're so happy to have her and the staff. And Shane Martin, I think. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry.
Shane, whoever you are.
Yes, but we have a phenomenal security team, and we're going to keep that up front and center before anything else. But that was the one theme, and sort of kind of when we were in Tampa, I went to a lot of the security classes there. The students knew.
Well, the big question is, if they knew, what do they do? And I had that situation a few years ago at another community college, not Motlow, but in a neighboring county. And we were alerted and advised as faculty, if you hear potential suicide in the classroom, this is the process to follow. And there was a young lady, 3 times during a class discussion, she mentioned the word suicide in terms related to her. So I followed suit and called my immediate supervisor. And what happened was it went from person to person to person to person. And the next morning, the Brentwood Police Department had 5 police cars show up at her house,
wow,
believing that there was an immediate suicide in progress. And this poor little girl came out with 5 police cars, red lights, and so forth. And it was a rather traumatic situation. Yeah. So the question is, we really, and I know there's a lot of learning, a lot of teaching, we really haven't determined at what point do you take it upon yourself as a student or as a teacher or as a staff, as a relative, as a family member, to be able to, quote, report that person that there may be an issue. We look back at the analysis right now of the shooter in Nashville. Did her parents know more than just the fact that she was buying guns? Did the therapist, and this is a whole area in itself, did the therapist have a ethical responsibility to report to the law enforcement in terms of HIPAA, in terms of reporting a situation with her patient. And so there's a whole lot of area. At what point do we sound the alarm? The obvious is certainly there. The obvious is if somebody is threatening and physically or psychologically or mentally threatening, is something we really can immediately address. But the query is, it's the quietness before the storm. It's almost like a tornado. It's the real quietness before the tornado actually hits. And do we have a method to be able to identify? And as you said, it isn't when, it's, it is when rather than what do we do about it?
Well, our school system does have an app, and so they can anonymously report that up through the app, and they can always go through the chain of command of the school system. I think that would probably be what needed to be done, would be on a case-by-case basis. I did have someone recently reach out to me and told me that their child was struggling, and so I called Patty and said, Patty, here's this parent's number. They're struggling. Will you help them? And I've since heard from the parent, and things have improved.
Great.
And the child is in the system and doing well. So we do have a lot of support systems for that. People just need to reach out and not stay in the state that they're in. And I know that's easier for me to say, but we do have many options for reporting and talking to counselors.
And in our final moments of discussion, talk about parental involvement. Talk about getting parents involved in the educational process. I can tell you that there are many parents that struggle trying to help a child do their homework, because homework today is a lot different than homework.
The math, yes.
The math or the science or what have you.
We hear a lot about the math, but absolutely, I know COVID changed a lot of it, and we've kind of tightened up our security protocols just a tad, but we love the parents to be in the school system, volunteer, especially in the elementary. There's room, because if we don't have someone to monitor the cafeterias, we have to place a full-time employee in there, so that costs us money. Volunteer to work lunch with go to lunch with your student and watch the children, because you just can't have enough eyeballs on all those children that are sitting there eating lunch. So there's so many things. We want the parents to be involved, and I know COVID, we're restricted to go into the building and things like that, but that is over. The buildings are back open. The parents absolutely need to be back involved. It helps the teachers. It helps the students. And I've always said that's a three-legged school. You got your parents, your students, and your teachers. And if you have all of them together, look, my own son, he would say one thing and the teacher would say another thing, and then we talk to his dad, and it's, they're smart kids. They know how to kind of work out of doing things.
They play the system well.
So they play the system well. So, we want our parents to be involved in the system.
And how can they get involved? Do they just say, well, I just heard Tammy on WGNS. Yes, I'd like to get involved. Do I just show up at the school one day and say, I'm here, take me in?
I wouldn't just show up, but I would email your principal and say, I have this certain talent, or I want to come and work the cafeteria, or I want to volunteer, because teachers need aides or chaperone for a bus, a trip to Nashville or something like that. So it's always good to have another set of eyeballs.
Absolutely, or ears as well.
Yes.
Ears as well. Technology, and as we close out the show, technology, good, bad, or indifferent in the educational process?
I definitely think that there's a place for that. But if you look at the big tech gurus, Steve Jobs, and some of the other ones, they didn't let their children have computers or iPads until they had graduated school, because there's such an addiction now. I'm sitting here looking at my phone. So I think it's great for an education tool, but it should not be the all.
Dealing with cell phones in the classroom, I've got to tell you, is my one disciplinary action. That
we changed it where they cannot have their phones in the classroom.
Excellent.
So we were going to go back and revisit it last fall, and it worked so well, we never revisited it, because that was one of our complaints from the teachers.
Tammy, it has been wonderful having you with us. We wish you the great success in your new term on the school board, and we certainly want to see you in the leadership of Rutherford County for many, many years to come. Tammy Sharp has been our guest on the Roundtable this morning, chair of the Rutherford County School Boards. I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, mothers and dads, grandparents, we are in good hands with Tammy Sharp and the board.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to come and talk anytime about our school system.
Portions of our programming have been pre-recorded. The Good Neighbor Network, WGNS, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, flagship station for MTSU Sports. Courthouse clock time, 10 o'clock.
Premier 6 Theater on Broad in Jackson Heights.
Let's all go to the movies.
Check out what's showing at murfreesboromovies.com. Popcorn popped fresh daily.
Movies at the